Welcome to Local 24 this week. I'm Richard Ransom. Hope you've had a great weekend so far. Before I introduce my panel, here's what we have on our plate for today. All things COVID. A federal judge blocks Governor Lee's executive order allowing parents to opt out of school mask mandates with a preliminary injunction. State lawmakers threaten to make the president's vaccine mandate a states' rights issue. The mayor of Memphis talks about getting COVID, and some Shelby County kids take getting vaccinated into their own hands. Next, we'll talk about the federal trial of State Senator Katrina Robinson, the defense her lawyers have come up with to explain how she spent those $600,000 in federal funds. And finally, U of M football. Renewed talk about an on-campus stadium, but where would it go? And outgoing President David Rudd's comments this week that Tennessee has not one, but two flagship schools, or at least it should. We'll talk about all of that today, but first I want to introduce my panel. Local 24 political analyst Otis Sanford is here, a former Local 24 reporter, retired. Mike Matthews is here as well, and Reverend Ken Whalum with the new Olivet Worship Center. Thanks, gentlemen, all three of you, for being here. Appreciate it. Let's talk about COVID first and start with this ruling by federal judge Cheryl Lippman, saying that she's decided that there's enough evidence here and based on what she's heard and the hearings that she's had to go ahead and extend the injunction against Governor Lee's executive order. Mask mandates reign supreme still now in school districts, and on it goes. How do you see this playing out? Otis, we'll start with you on this one.
Well, first of all, it was not a surprise to see Judge Lippman make this decision to turn a temporary restraining order into a much longer preliminary injunction. I expected that she would do this. I think it's the right move. At this point, I think it only applies to Shelby County schools because those are the plaintiffs, the parents of Shelby County schools, students right now.
Well, there are published reports that saying that this is all of Tennessee. Every
okay.
Student in Tennessee, yes.
All right, I misunderstood that then. I apologize. Because there was a dueling a ruling somewhere else in East Tennessee. So I'm glad it applies statewide. This is a real major defeat for the governor. You have to understand where Judge Lippman is coming from. She is a former legal counsel for the University of Memphis, and she understands situations around a lot of students in crowded places. And so she's looking at this from a practical standpoint, and she made the right decision here. And again, it is a huge blow to what Governor Lee has been saying. Actually, he's been saying 2 and 3 different things, but this is a major, major blow to him.
You know, Mike, I have a few contacts in the suburban school system. Shelby County Schools is already on board with a mask mandate, but they said, God bless Judge Lippman, because she has taken the heat off of them. They feel like the numbers speak for themselves. They've seen a reduction in COVID cases when they have a mask mandate at their schools, and they're glad that someone stepped forward on the judicial side of things and said, go ahead and keep them going and take the heat off of them.
Isn't it a shame, Richard, that we are thinking about leaders, political leaders in suburbs, GOP leaders mostly, who are now breathing a sigh of relief because a judge stepped in and gave them cover. My thing is, why would a judge have to come in and give you cover? Why could you not, on the front end, speak loudly against such an obviously draconian measure that Governor Lee proposed? The other thing I'd like to touch on is, think about this, man. Think about the import of a federal judge. It doesn't usually happen. It doesn't happen a lot where federal judges in a state rule against the governor of a state. This is unprecedented in many ways.
It really is. Mike Matthews, let's bring you in on this. SCS also this week announced it's going to refuse to cooperate with the state by handing over its COVID numbers school by school, saying that it's got 200 schools to keep track of, and that's asking a lot just logistically to be able to turn that over to the state every day, but also felt that any school that might have any kind of outbreak would draw headlines and that would distract from the learning. Is it those two things, or is that SES giving a giant middle finger to the state because they're tired of the state interfering with its business?
I think you hit it on the last point. This administration has interfered with schools all across the state in the last year on certain items, none more so than this, by the way. It hasn't hurt. I don't think it's hurt Governor Bill Lee's popularity in this state. People who voted for him in the last election will vote for him again. They are of the opinion that less government is better government, even though this is certainly an example of more government because it's government interference here. He's not popular in Memphis. I don't think Bill Lee will ever be popular in Memphis. We're one of those last Democratic areas of the state. But basically, the law is simply this: it prevents children from being victims. Okay, it prevents the children from getting COVID from somebody else. It prevents children to become victims of their parents' stupidity and ignorance when it comes down to masks and COVID-19. And I think a court will probably say that.
You're suggesting the parents don't always know best there, Mike. I'm shocked. I'm shocked to hear you say that. Let's talk about another political side to this, Otis, and that's Attorney General Herbert Slattery weighing in on President Biden's vaccine mandate and feeling that the state has a right to challenge that. State lawmakers doing the same, threatening a special session to disregard the different aspects of the vaccine mandate. Where do you think that's going?
Well, I mean, this is just more of Attorney General Herbert Slattery just carrying the water for conservative Republican lawmakers and the governor in Tennessee. This is an Attorney General who is not looking out for the legal welfare of the people of Tennessee. He is doing the bidding of Republicans, only Republicans. And I just think it's a shameful day. This is just another example of his positions on issues. He also is opposed to expanding voting rights under the John Lewis Act. He filed against that. I mean, he is being a partisan political person here and not doing his job as an independent attorney general. And let me just very briefly, Richard, respond to something Ken asked. Why did it take the judge to give cover to some of these Republicans in the suburbs? The answer quite clearly is they were afraid. They're afraid of the pushback from some of their constituents, some of the people that they talk to the most, who would be angry at them for doing this on their own. So they are glad to have this cover because of the political ramifications of it.
Well, you would think the health of our children would matter more than that, but I guess maybe that's not the case. Speaking of our children, you'll love this, Reverend Whalum. A bunch of Shelby County students putting together, my understanding is on their own volition, a pro-vaccine PSA that's going to be shown on TV stations here in the market. Let's take a look at it, and that'll get your reaction on the other side.
You two, you've been exposed. I'm afraid you're going to have to quarantine. Everyone else, have a great weekend.
I got my vaccine.
I should have gotten vaccinated. I should have gotten vaccinated.
That dream sucked.
Good thing we're vaccinated.
I love it. Mayor Harris touting it as well. That dream sucked. I think that was my favorite line. Reverend Whalum, what's your thought?
Absolutely fabulous. It deserves an Emmy. It deserves an Oscar. It deserves a Grammy. It deserves a Peabody. Man, that's the kind of thing that we need to be pushing our children to do, to be independent thinkers. Think of what they've done, Richard. They have taken a public stand against the governor. Yes. This is amazing, man. This is amazing. And that's the kind of young people we ought to be pushing into the spotlight here in Shelby County.
And not to be outdone this week, Mayor Jim Strickland making news as well, revealing that he has COVID-19. Not a bad case. He had been vaccinated, but he was talking about it for the first time this week. Let's hear what he had to say, and then Mike Matthews, I'm going to bring you in on that.
No one said that the vaccine or the mask are 100%, will guarantee you won't get it. This disease is very infectious, so you got to be careful. And but all the more reason to get vaccinated, because the data shows overwhelming that if you get vaccinated, you really won't get sick from it.
Mike, the mayor's been self-isolating. He's hoping to go back to work this week coming up, feeling much better. Said it really wasn't much worse than a bad sinus infection at its worst. But I think he's smart to get out there in front of the camera, even from his basement or wherever he happened to be, wherever his wife put him, and let people know this is important. And I'm well and doing well as a 50-something-year-old man, in part because I got the vaccine.
I think it's an important message for people, and I'm glad he's doing this. I often read and hear people say, well, look at the, why is the vaccine so big, such a big deal? Because people get COVID with the vaccine, and they do. Because they get, the regular flu vaccine, people get the flu too, okay? Vaccines are not 100% effective. That said, Jim Strickland is a person who, has sometimes respiratory problems. He often gets bronchitis and things like that. If he didn't have the vaccine and got COVID, he might die. He's not going to die because the vaccine lessens the effect on it. That's proof enough for me. That's proof enough for me. When you look at who's in the hospital, who's in intensive care, and you look at all the people in there who haven't been vaccinated who are there versus those who have been vaccinated, which is very few, if any at all. That says it all. And what the mayor said was very important for people to hear.
Very well spoken. And, to put a final point on this, Otis, look, we hear from healthcare professionals all the time working in these hospitals, helping these patients, and they describe the feeling they have has transitioned from when this virus first hit, where they were really fearful in many cases. They were very concerned and emotionally involved in these terrible stories of patients dying and not being able to say goodbye to their loved ones and all the things we've heard, to now almost a feeling of being numb, where they're treating these patients because they have to, that's their job, but that's really all it is. The level of compassion is not what they just don't have it in them anymore. Well,
and I understand that. I mean, they've been through this for over a year and a half now, Richard, and the stakes have changed. Early on, we didn't have the vaccine. So there was a lot of compassion around people who got COVID and died from COVID. But we now have the vaccine, and it's clear that the vaccine saves lives. Mike was right on that. And so, yes, I think while these healthcare workers are still doing their job, still being compassionate, they understand that a lot of these folks, or most of these folks, if not all of them, could have prevented this if they had gotten the vaccine and just did not do it.
So, Reverend, if I have a loved one who's in the hospital at Methodist or Baptist and they're in a very serious way ill for an unrelated condition altogether, and their life is threatened, and find out that their care is suffering because someone else with COVID-19 and a serious case of COVID, their life is threatened too, I'm going to have a lot of trouble with that in that particular situation. What advice would you give here for how loved ones can deal with this? Because I see this, I'm sure it's already happened, but will continue to happen in terms of how do you find the forgiveness, if that's what it is, to be okay with it?
Well, it has actually happened to me several times over the last several months, and a couple of times very, very recently. And as I've said on this program before, this is what the test of faith is all about. This is what the life of faith is all about, trying to press through into your belief regardless of what the situation is like. So my advice and counsel is always the same. Worship God, let him consecrate your mind and your heart, and then deal with things as they come. I never tell somebody it's easy to forgive somebody who's obviously wrong, somebody who's obviously in a position where they have taken advantage of you, or in the case of the question you just asked, the hypothetical you just posed, taken a literal hospital bed from one of your family members. But that's not up to me. That's not up to us. That's up to the life of faith. That's up to the individual to put into practice the things that they have learned in their beliefs.
All right, I'm going to end it there. This segment's gone a little too long, but I really wanted to get that question in. So thank you so much, Reverend Whalum. We're going to take a break. When we come back, we'll talk about the federal trial involving State Senator Katrina Robinson right after this.
Hey, I'm Influenza, here with my friends HPV and measles. We're doing a little social networking. It's okay if you don't like us, because we like you.
What should we do?
I'm going to cashnetusa.com. I can apply in minutes, and if approved, we can have the money as soon as the same business day.
Go to cashnetusa.com to apply for the money you need.
What is that?
When it comes to leaf blowers, size matters. Same goes for your law firm.
Going big?
Morgan & Morgan, America's largest injury law firm.
That was awesome.
I'm an oversharer. I can't contain myself. That's part of being the flu. Each year, I kill tens of thousands of Americans. Hey, I invented going viral.
We want to be the most accurate. We take great pride in that.
We're going to get you through this. That's what we're here for.
I had a viewer several years ago send me a letter saying, I was watching your coverage and you saved my life. When I saw that report of extensive damage, I was thinking to myself, oh God, I'm just glad everybody's okay. We don't scare people unnecessarily, but when there is a threat, we're going to tell you because it is the most important thing we do.
Welcome back to Local 24 this week. I'm joined by Local 24 political analyst Otis Sanford, retired Local 24 reporter Mike Matthews, and Reverend Ken Whalum of New Olivet Worship Center. All right, gentlemen, in this segment we're going to talk about the trials, literally trials and tribulations of Senator Katrina Robinson, state senator representing Memphis. She's in a lot of hot water right now. She's involved in a corruption case in federal court, and the case is expected to go 3 weeks, but this week was opening statements and the opening of the trial. And her defense seems to be that basically the $600,000 that she spent on her wedding, her honeymoon, and subsequent divorce, on designer handbags, on snow cone machines, the list goes on, basically was a result of an accounting error. They're kind of making the accountant the fall guy here. And you know, we'll see where this goes and if it sticks with the jury. Mike, I'll let you have first cut at this one.
It concerns me that she was in the legislature in Nashville, and she's handling the budget. If she's making this many accounting mistakes and problems and overseeing them, God knows what she was looking at when she saw the budget. I mean, this lady obviously can't figure it out, can't figure things out. I don't know about this. I mean, the intent is what's going to be a real issue here. Did she intend to defraud, or was she just plain not understanding the funding at all? It's going to be an interesting point. You know, one of her lawyers was an extremely vibrant and very aggressive U.S. attorney, assistant U.S. attorney here in town for a while. And so she's got good representation. I can't say yet whether I think she's, you know, I think I'm going to be interested to see what more of her defense is. The mistake issue that she's talking about, we made bookkeeping mistakes, that's a stretch. That's a stretch.
Reverend Whalum, I don't have to tell you, in Memphis, politics is somewhat of a spectator sport. We may not vote in numbers that we should all the time, but we do love all the trouble that our politicians find themselves in other scandals. Yes. This seems to fit right in with a long list of other similar episodes, going back to Operation Tennessee Waltz, and I don't know who else.
Well, yeah, and it's going to come down to the facts of the case. I don't know if you guys can see my Black's Law Dictionary behind me. I had to sort of bone up on burden of proof before we did this taping. But check this out, man. A couple of things are of interest to me. Mike makes a great point in that one of, and I guess this is her lead attorney, is a former federal prosecutor. That's a very smart move on her part to pick somebody who knows the tactics and knows the practices of prosecutors. I think that's going to stand her in good stead in the case, regardless of what the facts are. The other thing is, I can see where accounting errors would be largely responsible for a lot of the spending, but not all of it. And the last thing I wonder about is, where did the case originate, Richard? Who came up with this? Somebody had to say, wait a minute, better look at that spending. I just wonder where the case came from.
Well, it's worth pointing out that some $2.2 million in federal funds were given to her company that has a nursing school in Hickory Hill, Otis, and they say $600,000 of that was spent on items that had nothing to do with the nursing school. But who turned it in, or whose attention it caught, and why, we don't know.
Right, we don't.
Yeah.
And it is something that we asked early on when the investigation started, to Ken's point. I do think it's significant that Larry Lorenzi, that's her lawyer, who is a former federal prosecutor and a very good one. I've known him for years. I used to cover the federal courts, and that was a smart move on her part to get that. But you can bet, Richard, that the federal government has traced their funds. They know accounting. Even if Senator Robinson's accountant does not know accounting. And they have been able to trace these funds that into her accounts, out of her accounts, where they went. And I'm just not sure that a record-keeping problem is going to stick with this case.
Well, one thing we all know, we've covered enough federal trials in our day. Federal prosecutors generally don't make a case unless they feel like they have a pretty strong case.
That's right.
And have it all their I's dotted and T's crossed. Go ahead.
Richard, one more thing is that this could be a cautionary tale for people out here who want to get federal grants and all kinds. You better be careful. You better dot every I and cross every T, because the federal government is not playing when it comes to their money.
No question.
Especially with all the money that's flowing out of the federal government now. That's a very good point.
Right.
All right, let's take a break. We'll be right back and talk about the prospects of a new football stadium for the U of M. We'll be right back.
So there you were, finally making some headway when the whole landscape changes. That's when you can use an old friend like Speedy Cash, your bridge over troubled waters. Speedy Cash, we're here for you, online and in-store.
Call 526-2126.
Are you in need of hope, encouragement, and the love of God? I'm Pastor Salem. I'd like to invite you to join us for the Christian Worship Hour. For decades, I've been teaching the Word of God so that people everywhere can experience the love and power of a personal relationship with our Lord. Tune into this station this weekend and prepare to be blessed and encouraged by another life-changing message.
Learn more about our program at ChristianWorshipHour.com.
I'm Corey B. Trotz. Insurance companies know which personal injury law firms settle cases cheaply and which ones are prepared for trial. At Team NST, we have a proven track record of successfully trying cases to verdict each year. Call 683-7000.
Daily Blast Live is kicking off our 5th year, and we're not slowing down.
DBL moves to 11:30 starting September 27th.
So there you were, finally making some headway when the storm hit. That's when it's nice to know Speedy Cash is a good friend to have on a rainy day. Speedy Cash, we're here for you, online and in-store.
Someone tweeted this week that there's nothing sports hosts of radio shows like to talk about more than the prospect of a new stadium for the U of M, and it's certainly been fodder for conversation this week after comments from University President David Rudd to the Daily Memphian suggesting that that is seriously being looked at after the U of M got snubbed by the Big 12 in this latest go-around of conference realignment. They're hopeful that maybe this is the ticket, the one thing that maybe the piece that they're missing. Since you are the resident employee, Otis, of the U of M, professor over there, talk to us about what your thoughts are on this.
Well, first of all, I think Dr. Rudd floated that out there to the Daily Memphian as a way of saying that all of this conference realignment is not over, and Memphis people will take another look at Memphis, whether it's the Big 12 or something else. And the preference for all of these schools is to have an on-campus stadium. So that's why he put it out there. But let's be realistic here. Dr. Rudd is going to be leaving the presidency at the end of this school year, which is next May. And so whatever momentum there might be from him is going to slow down. I just don't know where a football stadium is going to be on the campus, Richard. There's no space right there at the contiguous part of the campus. It'd have to be on the south side of the railroad tracks. I don't know where it would be there. You'd have to tear down some houses. I mean, there's just a lot of unanswered questions here, and I know people have been wanting a on-campus stadium. Harold Byrd has been leading that for many, many years. I just don't know where it's going.
Yeah, that is the big question. Let me read you a quote from that Daily Memphian interview with Dr. David Rudd, because there was something else he brought up in the course of this football stadium conversation as well. He said, I think the state of Tennessee broadly needs to embrace the reality that there are two flagship universities in the state. That's UT Knoxville in the east and the University of Memphis in the west. That's consistent with the original charter of the Tennessee Higher Education Commission. Its original vision for Memphis was to be a flagship. If that's the case, the state needs to step up and invest as such. Reverend Whalum?
Well, Memphis has been treated like a stepchild by the state of Tennessee for many, many years, and I don't expect that to change, except, now you guys, before we started taping this segment, I was only half joking when I said that a new stadium should be built right where the Liberty Bowl is now, which is in Orange Mound. Listen, man, there is a lot of federal money, there's a lot of private foundation money that's available for community reinvestment, and if we consider Orange Mound as a historically Black residential neighborhood that deserves and has earned significant federal and state investment, I don't think the president of the University of Memphis, whoever it is, would poo-poo the fact of getting those kinds of dollars to reestablish a football stadium right where the present stadium is in Orange Mound, Tennessee. I was only half joking about that.
And would that be such a bad thing, Mike? I mean, he makes the point, too, in that interview that in the case of Navy, their football stadium is every bit as distant as Liberty Bowl is to the U of M. It's not like the distance is all that substantial.
Well, my basic question is, what's wrong with the Liberty Bowl? Yeah, it was built in the early 1960s, right? So many college sports facilities, major college programs. Ohio State University's stadium is decades old. Harvard's was built in 1903. I mean, they're decades old. They put money into them. The city, here's what they do. Memphis wants a stadium. Let them buy the Liberty Bowl from the city. Put all the money in they need to do it. Liberty Bowl has great seating. Yeah, it's showing its age. But you renovate it, put it in, it's fine. I don't think it keeps a single fan from attending those games. And I just don't want to see another stadium put up. America's becoming a city, a place where cities have new stadiums and then vacant stadiums. New arenas and vacant arenas. We had that, and that makes no sense at all.
Okay, I got to leave it there. We'll take a break. We'll be right back.
The NFL is back, and DraftKings' latest offer is a sure thing. So we got former automatic NFL kicker Martin Gramatica to break it down. Martin?
Bet just $1 on any NFL game, get $200 Automatica, no matter what.
That is Automatica, Martin Gramatica.
It's no stressy, Jesse.
Download the app, sign up with the promo code. Bet $1 to get $200 automatically, and make it rain with an official sports betting partner of the NFL.
Need cash? TitleMax offers 2 ways to get it. Get cash using your car title. Go to TitleMax.com, enter the car year, make, model. See how much you can get. TitleMax also offers an unsecured loan. No title required. Check out TitleMax.com when you need more cash. Check out TitleMax.com and shop us for rates. Get up to $2,500 without a car title, or up to $6,500 using your car title. And you'll say, I got my title back with TitleMax.
Get your title back with TitleMax.
The game show America needs.
I'm a stay-at-home mom with 4 wild young men.
These are your children you're talking about.
Maybe not.
Or maybe, whoa, Kev, I gotta say, you know how to pick them.
You bet your life.
Weeknights at 6:30 on Local 24.
The cast for the new season of Dancing will blow you away. Dancing, it's written in the stars. Dancing with the Stars premieres Monday on ABC and stream on Hulu.
We always love to hear from you. The email is rransom@localmemphis.com, rransom@localmemphis.com. My thanks to Otis, Mike, and Reverend Whalum for being here today, and my thanks to you at home. We'll see you next week for Local 24 This Week.